I thought this was a good example to show you using the thermal camera. And because this is aluminum, it doesn't always give you the exact temperature, but it's close enough. We are in the 20s, and as you can see, it's hanging off here tilted, so all the liquid refrigerant ran down the tubes to this end, and it filled up in the bottom of the receiver in the bottom few lines, and that's why you would get very cold down there. And you see the green in that area, or the blue, and not so much up there, other than, yeah, it is changed, but the outside temperature here is actually 51 degrees, I think. 52 degrees. So this is silver. Why are we 35 degrees, 47, 40 degrees, 35 degrees? We are not 35 degrees on a bumper. And I even adjusted the emistivity setting on here. But that's one of the problems with silver. That's okay. And you're coming down here. You see that pipe right there? That's your low side suction pipe. See what I'm looking at right there? There's my fitting. There's the heat exchanger. Now, look inside here. See, I don't have my light on, but I will try to get you inside. You see inside my sight glass? My sight glass is filled with oil right there. You can see the dye and the oil inside there. This vehicle is an accident vehicle. It's been sitting here overnight. So the temperature dropped down, I think, to about 48 degrees last night. That's not too cold compared to most of the country right now in the winter time. But if you see, this line is way down low, and then you see how that line goes back up again to the evaporator, go through the firewall right there, and then it comes back up about 10 inches, 11 inches, and then the pipe. So what that makes is, it's called an oil trap. That's actually an oil trap. And since this is winter time, even if the air conditioning was on or in defrost, it wasn't under a great load, so the compressor was at minimum displacement. It's easy for, and especially if you're a little low on refrigerant, you have less mass, it's easy for the compressor to be in minimum displacement. Refrigerant's excellent solvent. It'll go into the compressor, pick up some oil, and bring the oil out. But if you're a combination of low load and maybe low on refrigerant, oil goes out, it collects in the evaporator, it stays in the evaporator. Some of it comes out. The velocity and mass of refrigerant is low, and you make this thing that we turn into what's called an oil trap. Let it set overnight in the cold. The refrigerant goes from a vapor and condensates back into a liquid. The oil settles out of suspension and goes to the very lowest part of the tube. And this is the lowest part of the tube, and it just so happens they put the service fitting at the lowest part of the tube. So if you connect your refrigerant recovery equipment to the lowest part of the tube, in this stack of scenarios of situation, that will fill up with oil. So when you turn it on, what I got here was a big glob of oil and refrigerant at the same time. So you can remove an ounce or more of oil in a small system that's only a 600 gram system. You can remove a large chunk of oil as you're doing a recovery, like what happened here. And I have a sight glass, and I noticed it right away. It just flashed with a solid lug on the vapor line. That's supposed to be vapor, not liquid. And the scenarios, the physics stacked up and was right to make this scenario. So how many times does a car go into a body shop, and you know, usually guys aren't too well trained on their equipment, and many actually don't know because they're the second or third or fourth guy who learned from the guy before him, who learned from the guy before him how to operate the machine. And you know, like that little game you played in campfire or in summer camp or something, where or school, you whispered a secret message in somebody's ear, and then that person transfers that information to the next person, by the time it gets back to the last person, it's all messed up. Well, that's how air conditioning is. Air conditioning has been word of mouth and showing people from somebody who usually wasn't very educated about air conditioning in the first place, but was good enough to sell parts and get it blowing cold. Then he transfers his information, and there's a little loss to the next person and the next person. So getting at it, this is one of those scenarios where you hook up your recovery machine, the guy doesn't know he's supposed to check the oil removed in the little can in the back of the machine, and it's a body shop, and some of them don't even know you're supposed to even put oil back into the system. I can fill this system up and have 2 ounces of oil missing out of the system, fill it up right now, and the air conditioning would work perfect. And it would work perfect all winter long because there would be no load. It'll never get above 60 degrees in San Francisco. So when springtime rolls around in several months, and maybe even summertime until he goes somewhere 80, 90 degrees, then the high side head pressure will go up. That lack of oil will really start stacking up on the bearings. You'll start having overheating, lack of lubricant, and this compressor burns up 9 months or a year and a half or 2 years later because what happened inside a body shop a year or 2 earlier. That's the scenario that stacks up that causes all these problems, and I see this all the time. And so I'll see a vehicle like this that was in a body shop 9 months ago or a year and a half ago in a mechanical shop, and then I find out it was in a body shop and they did the front end. And usually you do an oil balance on your components and you'll find out it's always low on oil, and it didn't leak out. It was the shop that worked on it. That's all for today. See you guys later.